you don't know what you don't know. And
No,
that's
absolutely. No, you don't. And
exactly.
I think, that is one of the benefits of being an older person, for me anyway, is that I'm willing to accept that I don't know everything, but also I'm sure, like yourself, we don't even realize how big our network is until you start speaking to people and they go, oh yeah, I know somebody that could help you with that. I know someone. Whereas, often when you're younger, you are going to be scurrying around to try and get that kind of support from, different organizations. I mean, as you identified, and I certainly found, one of the reasons why we're doing this is because it can be really lonely as an older person starting in business. You don't often see a lot of us at these networking events that you go to, even though the media may tell you that we're all over the place and whatever. And one of the things that you've alluded to, and I've also had to deal with, is that sometimes businesses require outside investment and you just can't avoid it. You want to get to a certain size, or you want to be able to leave your existing job, and you think the only way I'm going to do that is for somebody to give me some money, whether it's a bank or an angel investor or whatever. And I don't know about you, but my experience of that, especially as an older woman, was that that was pretty challenging, and continues to be quite challenging, actually. So can you just share a bit about your sort of fundraising experience?
Yeah, so I think you're absolutely right. I think the typical kind of angel investor and those kinds of investment networks are looking for the more kind of sexy fintech, though, and they tend to be kind of much younger. Those who maybe done 3-4 years in sort of tech company and spun off an idea. That said, there are older people working in starting up tech companies, but I think they're more appealing, more attractive to some of the investment groups that I've sort of been involved with or aware of. For me, I wanted an investor, but I also wanted some mentoring, and I think just touching what you were talking about earlier, and I'll come straight back to this, was I think also as we get slightly older, our social network shrinks a bit. Because we have family, kids. So therefore, I think going out to your broader network is really valuable and really, really important. Ex-colleagues, because perhaps you're not out every weekend anymore. So for me, what I wanted with an investor it wasn't just the financial aspect of it. In fact, that was probably about third on my criteria. Quite fortunate that we didn't have and don't have a large mortgage. I'd been quite careful, quite astute, and had managed to drive our mortgage down to a manageable level. So our kind of outgoings were managed, shall we say. What I wanted was someone who'd got the scars on their back, had started a startup and product, had exited, because at that point, that wasn't to me. Part of my vision was run the company, start a business, and exit at some point. So I wanted someone who'd started a business from nothing, as I had, product, goes back to what we talked about earlier, who can help me understand what it is around manufacturing and some of the pitfalls and some of the skills you'd need. Exited a business successfully, and had invested in other startups, so I could see and understand their relationship with their new startups. Difficult to come by.
especially in the UK, man.
Yeah,
I mean,
I was quite specific.
we haven't had that many exits. For those of you who don't know what that means actually like selling your business and getting some substantial amount of money.
And running for the hills.
Yeah.
So my criteria
living the dream.
Correct. Yeah. So my criteria was quite specific, but I did manage to track an individual down who ticked all the boxes. She had started a business in her mid-20s, I think. Ran it for 17 years and exited, sold the business for a significant, life-changing sum of money, and had gone on to kind of be a bit of a serial entrepreneur. Her name is Lara Morgan. One of the UK's most successful female sort of business women, has been on like The Apprentice, so I managed to grab a coffee with Lara. She was a keynote speaker at, I think, one of the business startup shows at the XL Conference Centre. Managed to rugby tackle her on the way out. She let me buy her a coffee. I talked through my branding. I had a prototype, and she gave me, I think, 19 reasons, I do remember, why she wouldn't invest in me. She let me buy her a coffee and then basically told me where to go.
Yeah.
But we spent 20 minutes together. So I made a mental note of all those 19 reasons. And then what I did do was managed to take a sabbatical from my employer.
Yeah.
So my employer gave me a period of unpaid leave.
Yeah.
I then went and actioned against most of those 19 points.
Cool.
So one of them was around the branding, around the product design, things. And then it just so happens I was exhibiting at another event, and Lara walked by, completely, just coincidental.
Wow.
And she said, "I remember you." And I said, "Well, I bloody remember you." She went, "Wow, you've done it, what I asked you to do. This time I'm going to buy you a coffee, and let's see if we can do a deal."
Amazing. But you know what, the Bennett, again, great story, because when somebody pushes back, the immediate reaction is screw you, right? Correct. I'm going to do things my way. And my experience is that if an investor is willing to take enough time to speak to you and actually to give you constructive feedback, that's what I think, it's constructive feedback, and you listen to that feedback and you execute on it, then the chance of you getting, potentially receiving investment from that person just goes through the roof. But if you tell them to just get stuffed, that you've got things sorted and you're not interested, then not only are you closing the door on that relationship, but potentially they're going to tell their mates, who might also be a bunch of investors, that person is a pain in the neck and you don't want to deal with them, right? Whereas it's such an ego flattering thing to do, to just go, I've heard what you say, I'm going to do all of those things because I think you're awesome, and I'm going to take all of that on board. And listen, that's the way, that's it. And also it points to take advice from people who matter, right?
I also think, because of the fact that we're a bit maturer, which I knew some of the politics around corporate life, and I wasn't going to go on the defensive.
No.
For the reasons you've said, but I just think that level of maturity is, what have I got to gain by sticking two fingers up and walking and throwing my toys out the pram? Take it on board, absorb it. Here's someone who's walked the walk. Yeah. So absorb it. That was probably the cheapest consultancy I ever had. One coffee.
Yeah.
And as you said, look where it's got me to. She invested in me. A year later, I can't remember the exact timings. And yeah, we're still business partners.
Yeah.
8 years on.
No, I mean, it's a great story, and I think it's, like I said, it's not just about the people that may be giving you potentially money, but I think in any new business, there's loads of people willing to give you advice, right? When you're starting up, firstly, there's the naysayers who just say, this cannot be done. You have no experience. What do you know? This is never going to work, right? And again, one of the things I heard you say was, make sure that you surround yourself with people who want to help you and want to see you succeed. So no, you don't have to tell your wife when actually that house, which is fairly secure, is looking a little bit less secure. Maybe not, but but just to say, look, you know what, I think that I'm ready to take that leap, and I really want to know that you're beside me when I'm going to do this, and that we're okay with this, because it is going to be a bit of a leap of faith. I've had this big corporate job for God knows how long. So I think that's really important. But just even I've over the years, I've definitely let go of people in my life that I just did not feel had my best interests at heart, And at this point in our lives, I just think we cannot risk that, because it's already quite a vulnerable place that we put ourselves in doing this. You need to have people that are like on your side, right?
Well, completely, yeah. I mean, as you said, I think there's a lot of negative. You can be surrounded by a lot of negative energy, and I think it's important to be courageous and maybe distance yourself, decouple from some of those, because you will need the kind of positivity. You need realism. Let's be honest. Sure. You need realism, but you can be realistic in a positive way, and you can be realistic in a negative way. And the last thing you want is to be drawn down that negative channel. One of the things I would suggest, and I was able to do it with Lara, was we agreed a sum of money for some equity, which I was happy to release. But what we did agree was we would, before any formalities were signed, like shareholder agreements, we would work together for a period of 6 to 12 months.
Wow,
let's see. And again, Lara and I similar-ish age. She'll probably kill me for that. But we get on really well. We have our moments, but on balance, we get on fabulously well. So we agreed that we would have a working relationship for a period of time, and then at that date, we'd sit round a table and say, do we want to do this? Do we want to sign our lives away? And that worked really well, because it gave me the confidence that she trusts me, I trust her, and let's not sign up to something now that could end up hating each other. So we were able to work together for that period, and then we both agreed, fabulous, let's do it.
Also, I'm assuming that in having that kind of partnership, she wasn't like a partner because she was an investor, but there was obviously a working relationship that meant that you then weren't really on your own completely, that you had somebody to whom you could be accountable and who made you more accountable as well, which is again something that I always suggest to people, like, even if it is just somebody that you meet on this course that can make sure that those actionable goals that you've set yourself are happening, and that you're not procrastinating endlessly, because you can. Just having somebody that can work with you is great. I mean, the other thing that also this points to is like, getting investment is a really big deal. That when people who watch Dragon's Den, which you auditioned for and I actually filmed for, but was never aired, so we're in that Dragon's Den world. When you watch those programs, what you don't really get the sense of is that this person who's potentially going to give you money is somebody that you're going to have to really get on with. Get on with, like you get along with your partner, right? So when you take money from people, you need to interview them as much as they need to interview you, because potentially they can absolutely demolish your business because they have a completely different set of objectives. And you're like, you don't know that. So, you know, I mean, this is for another conversation. We could perhaps have another one, but I think, you know, there's a whole thing on getting money, who you get money from, how you ask for it, what it means, all that. That's another kind of big conversation. But I mean, just
I agree with you. I agree with you entirely. That it's a decision that should not be taken lightly.
No, absolutely not.
Do not bite the first hand.
No.
You know, that offers to feed you. Do your due diligence, do your governance. And that's why I wanted someone who had invested in startups, so I could go and talk to those other startups and say, what's your relationship like?
Yeah, for sure.
When you know, when the proverbial hits the fan and you phone that number, does she answer?
Yeah.
Yes or no? These are all important, you know, so I agree. It's a two-way, and you know, no pun intended for my business, you're in it for the long haul.
Yeah. So, which leads us nicely to we'll just wrap up. We'll just think about wrapping up on, obviously, you're in a business that relies on people traveling, and we are in the middle of this pandemic, and that must have impacted on your work in a massive way. That none of us could have anticipated. I mean, I run a business that depends on people moving. Imagine what's happened to mine as well. So, you know, but in those moments where you're thinking to yourself, could it get any worse? What are your sage words of advice for those of us, all of us, I include all of us, who are like going, how the hell are we going to get through this one?
No, really good question. So what I did was, again, when we first started the conversation, my sales channels are split very much into two. So I reached out to both audiences and said, look, you know, what is it we can do to help you guys? You know, you're not going to buy luggage off me, but what is it I can do with our skills, with our supply chain? So the airlines came back and said, can you help us? We need to do passenger recovery flights. We need fully certified face masks.
Okay.
With your infrastructure in place in China, it was in the early days of the pandemic, it was like the Wild West to get PPE. We all read about it.
Yeah.
So we were able to provide to some of our airlines fully certified PPE so they could run their flights and provide cabin crew and passengers with professional face masks. We then further developed that into kits for their crew. So we started to package up face mask, hand gel, gloves, sanitizing wipes, and produce crew and passenger kits.
Wow. So
we were able to, I guess the classic is pivot the business into our kind of B2B, our business to business channel, helping them deliver their duty of care to their crew. So that was really useful for us. It kept the relationships alive.
Yeah.
They were able to trust us, and we were delivering. With our B2C audience, what I was acutely aware of was I didn't want to become a brand of health and safety. We're a luggage brand, but it's a bit like when you kind of do branding. We make travel easy. It just so happens we do it through luggage.
Yeah.
So we don't just sell black bags on wheels. We sell really clever luggage that will help you avoid baggage check-in.
Yeah.
I didn't want to lose the travel element to the branding that I'd worked so hard on. So I didn't start selling individual PPE items. We started to put together travel kits.
Right.
So we started to sell travel kits that if you're returning to work, or when you start traveling, or you're visiting wherever, buy our travel kits, and it's a neat, convenient package of everything you'll need so you can travel confidently and safely. So we kind of did that classic pivot, but really importantly, keeping the essence of the travel safe, travel efficient. So that's what we did, and that kind of kept the revenue going, some sales. We had some existing pre-COVID orders from our airlines.
Yeah.
What I did, I did the right thing. I talked about this at the beginning, integrity. So I called up the airlines and said, look, you've got some orders with us.
Yeah.
Clearly, you don't need us to deliver them now when you have 350 aircraft on the ground.
Yeah.
We would happily defer those.
Mm.
And, they really appreciated that. I mean, I could have buried my head in the sand and sent them 3,000 bags in April.
Yeah. But again, I mean, it all goes back to the very beginning. Ultimately, you have to understand your customers. Yeah. You have to have that personal relationship with them that allows you to ring up and say, look, how can we help, right? We're a bit stuffed here. We're not going to sell you bags. We know that. Is there anything else we can do for you? Is there any other support that you need? And having and nurturing that relationship gave you the ability to be able to keep your business going through those tough times that we're now in. And we're doing the same, always speaking to people, trying to give them advice and support. So to close this off, this has been such a great conversation. You've covered like every single bloody side of the whole starting a business thing, from your pain point to getting your first order into your customers, everything. This has been so awesome.